Sinister 2, which, as the title suggests, is the sequel to Sinister 1, 2012's Sinister. Actually, there's an interesting thing about Sinister. So Sinister had Ethan Hawke as a true crime writer who was desperately in need of another hit, who moves his family, unbeknownst to them, into a house in which something terrible has happened. He then uncovers a stash of snuff movies in the attic. These are like Super 8 films, which, when played, have a demonic quality, and the demon Bhugul is behind it all.
Demon who?
Bhugul.
Is that how you...
That is how you do. You have to say it in that voice, otherwise it's just called the demon Bhugul. Bhugul, like the boogeyman. And the interesting thing about Sinister was that for about half an hour, it seemed like it was going to do something that may be kind of intriguing, and it had a certain creepiness to it. And of course, Ethan Hawke is a perfectly fine actor. And it holds a place in my heart, because although I think it's a mess and it wasn't anything like as good as it should have been, it started a very interesting conversation between me and Stuart Barr, who's a terrific film journalist, because I had said it's a found footage movie, because in it, Ethan Hawke literally finds footage. And he got in touch with me to say, that's not a found footage movie. This is, you're confusing the terms. And we then had and it was the beginning of a long-standing friendship. He's a very fine writer and knows a lot about horror cinema. But so I quite like Sinister because of the fact that it provoked an interesting discussion, despite the fact that a good hour of the movie isn't any good. So now along comes Sinister 2. This time Ethan Hawke is out of the picture, so it's left to the second stringer, the guy who played the Deputy So-and-so, to now step in to take the central role, because you have to have some kind of major genetic link with the first one. So the story this time is that Shannon Sossamon is a wife who has escaped a brutish husband with her boys, moved them into an affordable rural home. Do you know what happened there? Yeah, that's why it's affordable. And the curse of Bhugul is going to be repeated. James Ransone comes along to explain to her that something bad is going to happen, and also to further investigate the legend of Bhugul.
There are fragments, references to Bhugul, the boogeyman, across all cultures over the centuries. That some cultures believed that it lived in another realm, reachable only by ritual or sacrifice. And others believed that it fed off of the corruption of innocence. But no matter what, there were always three things in common. There's a murdered family, missing children, and some form of iconological totem, or a thematic offering. It's image, literature, music.
Okay, so the murders are captured through art?
It's aesthetic observance of violence.
And that line got a big laugh in the screening that I was in.
This is
the aesthetic observance of violence. So whatever charm the original might have had is pretty much thrown out of the window in what is nothing more than a very perfunctory by-numbers retread. I mean, the problems are manifold. The first one is that in the first movie, there was a certain creepiness about Bhugul, because you barely saw him, and it was a kind of shadowy sort of Babadook thing going on. Now it's just Babadud. Now he's absolutely everywhere, and it's just like, oh, there's a Marilyn Manson clone standing in the corner of the room, and then he's over there, and then he's over there. So that any creepiness, that strange mystery when you don't quite see something. The thing about the scariest thing in Alien is when you don't see the alien, and then you finally see the alien, but you barely do. But when you finally see the alien, that's the moment at which you realise it's just a guy in a rubber suit. And in this case, it's when you go, oh yeah, it's just a goth standing in the corner. I'm not scared by that. Second thing is that the kid's makeup looks like an outtake from a makeup test that was rejected by Guillermo del Toro for the ghostly sequences in The Devil's Backbone. The third thing is that the films themselves have become terribly dull, because the films are these sort of major plot points that they are films of some sort of horrific culty murder that happens again and again and again, involving youngsters, and they've become so complicated and overwrought as to have lost any kind of creepy sort of Children of the Corn appeal that they might once have had. It's very, very dull, to the point that even the sprocket fetishism, which I kind of, I like anything that involves Super 8 movies and the idea of cameras and lacing up projectors. There's something very it's almost erotic about lacing up a projector,
No,
about
there's
seeing.
not.
Yeah, there is.
No,
Seeing
there isn't.
celluloid going. I'm sorry. There's a whole body.
What is erotic about lacing up a camera?
I can't explain it, but there's a freeze. This, the way the celluloid goes through the sprocket. Okay, it doesn't matter. What matters
is to do with sprockets and holes. Is that what you're talking about?
No, it's nothing that crass. Thank you for saying. It's just to do with the machinery. There is something mechanical about. I'm sorry,
mechanical. I can do mechanical.
Okay, anyone who has ever laced up any form of projector will understand the delicious thrill of running them. But what I'm saying is, in this movie, even that has gone. Even that sort of slightly mephitic creepiness about the idea of, in order to make these images play out, you actually have to lace. Even that's gone. So the movies aren't interesting. The lacing up of the projector isn't interesting. Bhugul, imagine that. Just looks like Marilyn Manson standing in the side of the room. The kid's makeup isn't badly done. The second stringer can't carry the lead. The plot is all over the place. By the time you get to the end, you're back at the beginning, and there is a moment in it when one of the teenage boys says, "I don't want to watch anymore," and you could almost hear the whole cinema going, "Yeah, you're not alone, kid."